Even with its lovable cast of characters and intricate plot lines, there is one massive sore thumb of Transformers Animated: the Allspark. The main MacGuffin of the first season and a prominent factor in the remaining two, the Allspark was the source of all Cybertronian life and the cause of the Great War between the Autobots and the Decepticons. To keep the powerful entity from malicious servos, the Autobots sent the Allspark careening through a space bridge to regions unknown, which saw the decline of the conflict and the Decepticons' informal surrender. However, when the Allspark is discovered by Optimus Prime's maintenance crew, it catches the attention of the long-lost Khans, who promptly arrive to reclaim it within 4 minutes of its discovery. Very punctual, that Megatron. For such a quintessential plot point, one that the entire story hinges on, the Allspark is incredibly vague and ill-defined. It may sound like I'm bashing the show a lot here, but this is only because of how much I love this show and how much of a massive problem this is. One doesn't typically write, storyboard, and voice act an entire 4th season for a canceled TV show if they don't, like it. It's okay to have critical thoughts of a good show. First and foremost, the Allspark is thoroughly established as being the source of life.
Ever hear of the Allspark?
Yeah, the most powerful energy source in the universe. It gave the spark of life to all Cybertronians.
Every bot knows that story.
That raises a couple questions. If Optimus, Bumblebee, Bulkhead, and Prowl weren't online during the Great War...
It's not my war!
Oh, not Prowl? Then how did they come online if the source of life had been sent through a space bridge? If the Allspark is the source of life, where do protoforms lie in all of this? Does the Allspark embed the protoforms with sparks? Where do protoforms come from? Are they built? The Dinobots, Soundwave, Wreck-Gar, and the Constructicons didn't need protoforms for the Allspark to bring them online. Only Allspark fragments getting wedged in them. On that note, the police bots, this robot, this truck, and this fully automated rapid transport system also had Allspark fragments wedged in them, but they didn't come to life. Why? These are fairly minor inconsistencies, though, that are perhaps too fiddly to require an explanation. What starts derailing the story is the question of what powers the Allspark has exactly. In Transform and Rollout Part 1, Megatron states,
I will harness its energy into the ultimate weapon and crush the Autobots.
How does one use life-giving properties as a weapon? It doesn't make sense. In Transform and Rollout Part 3, Starscream fires it like a laser. Then, upon being opened, it emits a massive radial beam of energy that apparently has actual physical force to it as it pushes Starscream and Optimus away. Once the Allspark takes the form of the key, Megatron stabs Starscream in the chest with it and kills him, even though the key has never been shown to have this ability before. Shouldn't this have given Starscream a power boost like every other time the key's been used in the series before this? Also, as the key, it inexplicably has the ability to control all machinery. Sure, you could argue that the technology of Detroit is reverse engineered from Cybertronian circuitry, but does that mean the Allspark has the ability to mind control and override Cybertronians? How come no one uses it for this purpose, if so? Even if there is a lot of Sumdac tech, it seems unlikely that all the technology in the entire city of Detroit was completely overhauled within 50 years to make way for the robot revolution. I believe automatic doors existed before the 22nd century. I believe toilets existed before the 22nd century. Why was there a keyhole in a toilet? What on earth happens and along came a spider? Please explain this. What?
What's happening?
Despite Megatron stating his intentions to harness the Allspark's energy into the ultimate weapon, once he gets the Allspark, he just sticks it in his chest and becomes extra bright. Come on, Marty Eisenberger wrote both those episodes, so why the inconsistency? Then, most frustratingly of all, Megatron is defeated in about 30 seconds when Optimus sticks the Allspark key into the Allspark, which causes the Allspark to explode. The solution to the storyline of the entire first season is a surge of Deus Ex Machina that hadn't been previously talked about or established whatsoever. There wasn't even so much as a line saying, "Say, would sticking the key in the Allspark work to defeat Megatron? Maybe, but it's very experimental." No, even that would have been tacky and forced, but it would have at least been something. Finally, to wrap up the inconsistent powers segment of this video, Megatron survives his spark chamber itself, being the focal point of the most powerful artifact in existence violently combusting within him. Despite the fact that Starscream was just touched with a little energy, and it killed him. Another major issue was briefly touched on earlier. that being inconsistent Deus Ex Machina. The Allspark definitely has his own set of motives, mysteriously acting in ways that all conveniently let the plot happen.
Hey! What's that thing doing?
That alone could work, but these motives also seem to be completely random. It opens a space bridge on its own accord and brings the Autobots and the Allspark to Earth. It opens its container and channels its energy into the keycard of an 8-year-old girl. It guides Sari to Prowl to save him from death. So you'd think it's on the side of our heroes, right? That seems to be what the show wants us to think, but yet, at the same time, the Allspark is what brought Megatron to Earth in the first place. He was on the ship. Bringing the Allspark only brought the Decepticons to Earth, endangering humanity. It guides Sari to the door of Sumdak's lab, which brings Megatron back to life.
Oh, check that out.
Then, when all logic seems lost, the Allspark goes out of its way to instill the Dinobots with sparks.
Whoa, this is new.
Why are they important to it, exactly? But here's the thing, the show didn't treat these as a question. It just seemed to say, the Allspark did this. Moving on.
There's this thing called the Allspark that created all of us because I don't know why.
Actually, that pretty much sums it up.
Cyberverse actually seems to be aware of this, but, it seems like fixing the problem might be a better solution than making a joke about the problem. Baby steps, though.
Allspark in that storage suit. I'll have to hold on to it for you.
The key seems to act as a homing beacon whenever anything Cybertronian is nearby, but it only does this at the story's convenience. It does nothing to alert Sari of Starscream flying in. It doesn't make a peep when 2 Decepticons enter the base. Later, when Sari is the key, it does nothing to alert her whenever Soundwave's nearby. It knows everything about space bridges, which aren't alive, just created by Cybertronians. You could chalk this up to the show being cancelled before we got an explanation, but considering there wasn't so much as a hint in all 42 episodes, I really question if Marty Eisenberg or his freelancers had an answer to this.
Sorry, how did you know what to do?
I don't know. I just kinda did.
Something very similar to this in concept is how the Force is used in Star Wars Rebels. It's not exactly a secret that the Allspark, as well as Processor over Matter, is basically just the Force. POM is just lifting things with your mind, and the Allspark is everything else. In Rebels, the Force will frequently intervene in the characters' situations and pull them out of tight spots with no explanation outside of, the Force is mysterious, Ezra. Want to travel through an unstable star cluster? Sure! Want to travel through a planet? A-okay. Want to have all the solutions to your situation bluntly given to you in a vision? Rightio. In several behind-the-scenes segments, they talk about how the Force is a mystery. But it doesn't work if you yourself don't have the answer. That's how Lost happened. Not only is it Deus Ex Machina, it's non-specified Deus Ex Machina. If they want the Force to have a will of its own, at least treat it as a character with consistent motivations. Compare Rebels' use of the Force to the original trilogy of Star Wars. There's not a single instance of the Force itself acting as a guiding hand to get the characters out of a situation. The Force-sensitive characters relied solely on their own strength in the Force. They channeled it. Luke used the Force to blow up the Death Star. The Force didn't just do it for him. Oh, don't worry, Luke, I got this. I'm the Force. That's what happens in Rebels, and then that's what happens in Animated with the Allspark. Despite all I've said above, the biggest issue I have with the Allspark is that the story gives you no reason to care about it. None of the characters have any personal stakes in the Allspark, besides maybe Ratchet. They're protecting it because they're good and Megatron's bad. Contrast this with Season 3. The main MacGuffin of that season was Omega Supreme, a character that a main cast member has an intimate connection and bond with. The Season 3 premiere spends its time showing us why we should care about Omega Supreme as a person, but also why we should fear his destructive capability. What makes this situation even more interesting is that Omega Supreme was created by the Science Guild and the Elite Guard to be a faceless weapon, much like the Allspark actually wound up being.
You see, Omega Supreme was purposely designed to have a very simple processor. With it, you will be able to carry out his mission without hesitation.
In other words, you don't want him to think too hard about all the devastation he's gonna cause.
Yet he ended up being an individual.
You taught me to protect like an Autobot, but all I did was destroy like a Decepticon.
We do what we must, even if it sometimes doesn't make sense.
I don't understand.
I'm not sure I do either. Just rest now, friend. You've earned it.
Transformers as a whole really suffers from MacGuffin misuse. So Animated's Omega Supreme really stands as one of the best in the franchise as a whole. Season 3 handled its plot devices in the way Season 1 should have. Season 2 isn't perfect either, but there, Megatron's using the space bridge to specifically attack something they care about, that being Cybertron. Now, would it have been more impactful if we had seen Cybertron before Season 3 and we actually cared about it as an audience? Yes, it would have been a lot better, because the only time we got to see it was in Auto Boot Camp and the characters, hated being there. So, yeah, Season 2 could have handled the emotional connection to Cybertron much better. Escaping the realm of TFA again, today I watched Ant-Man and the Wasp, and the main plot device of that film is a shrinking building, a lab. But what makes this so important is that every character who's hunting it has their own relatable reason for doing so. For Hope and Hank, lab is the key to finally locating Janet, the woman most important to them, who's been lost in the quantum realm for 30 years. For Ghost, this lab represents a cure to her condition, to stop the suffering that she's been enduring for a decade. For Sonny Birch, the technology within the lab is the killer opportunity for his black market operation to thrive. For Ant-Man himself, the lab isn't what's important, but the reward for claiming it. He wants to make up with Hank and Hope and show that he's sorry for putting them on the run. And Luis? Well, he's Luis.
You know what I'm saying?
The MacGuffin of this story is fundamental to every character's arc, and that's what makes it feel so valuable. And yeah, I know that Ant-Man and the Wasp is not a perfect piece of American literature. It's just what came to my head. If you want a local example, look no further than one of my all-time favorite animated episodes, Thrill of the Hunt, written by Andrew Robinson, and its central plot device, the EMP generator. It's telling that Thrill of the Hunt is the only episode of the entire first season in which the Allspark isn't used or mentioned in any capacity. Ratchet introduces his electromagnetic pulse generator as a medical tool. It represents Ratchet's position as a field medic. When it gets taken by Lockdown and turned into a weapon, it leaves literal and emotional scars on a now traumatized Ratchet. He won't let go of the past. Ratchet's an expert medic, but he's left completely unable to heal his own wounds. It's not some piece of technology that faces him, but what it represents. Lockdown isn't after the EMP because it's a massive world-ending machination. He's after it because he's a trophy hunter, and to him it represents a bounty well done. Well, he didn't actually succeed. Come to think of it, Lockdown fails to capture RC, fails to capture Optimus, fails to capture the first Starscream clones. He doesn't succeed at anything until 5 Servos of Doom. It's also worth noting that the EMP is only the spark and conclusion of the episode's events. The rest of the episode is character-driven, and an exploration of the emotional stakes following the incident with the EMP.
You want me to use that EMP to make your pain go away? This was a medical tool meant to heal. You turned it into a weapon.
On top of being ill-defined Deus Ex Machina, the Allspark is the textbook definition of a powerful, world-ending plot device that needs to be kept from the bad guys so that the plot can happen. It doesn't mean anything to the heroes that protect it, which is a shame because there are many ways to keep this from happening. Still miles better than the movie Allspark, though.
Before time began, there was the cube.